Talking about personal brand, like one of the things I'm known for, I believe, in the jiu-jitsu community, and this has bled into so much of why I believe, I'd have to go ask around particularly. I believe I'm probably the highest paid female athlete of today, at least, that's still competitive, because I don't rely on my fights and seminars only for money. So I have a lot of different revenue streams. We've got 4 schools. My family and I have 4 academies. I have JJA. I have commentary. I have the podcast, interviewing, different kinds of media, brand deals. And then, of course, seminars, fights, camps.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Built for Legacy. I'm your host, Chris Nichols. Today, our guest is Kendall Reusing. Kendall is one of the top black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitors in the world and an entrepreneur. This show is all about finding these exceptional athletes who have built brands, built businesses beyond their identity as an athlete. And with all the things that Kendall has been doing in addition to her competition career, she's the perfect guest for my show. Kendall is also founder of a program called JJA, or Jiu Jitsu Accelerator, where she does individual and group mentorship to help people improve their jiu-jitsu game, work on mindset tactics, strength and conditioning, and other best practices to bring the best out of them. She's also one of the most well-known commentators in the sport of jiu-jitsu. If you watch any of the top athletes compete, chances are Kendall is commentating as you're watching the stream. This was a really fun conversation with Kendall. We talk about her personal branding efforts, where she got her entrepreneurship drive from. One of my favorite moments from our conversation was how she was able to keep business opportunities coming her way, even if she wasn't constantly winning in competition. Now, that being said, Kendall is still one of the best black belt competitors in the world. I met her for the first time after she competed at ADCC 2024 in Las Vegas. So we talk about some of her most memorable moments from a competition standpoint, a commentating standpoint, how she's overcome injuries, and how she prepares to be at her best. Kendall also hosts her own podcast called Get a Grip with Kendall Reusing, which you guys should check out. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. Please follow Nichols and Dimes on Instagram and Built for Legacy podcast on Instagram for clips and updates. Follow Built for Legacy with Chris Nichols on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And please share any feedback you have for me in the comments or DMs. Now, please enjoy my conversation with Kendall Reusing. Kendall Reusing, what's going on?
Hello, hello. Welcome to my home and my podcast studio. It's so funny being on your podcast, but I'm like, the Get a Grip sign is really speaking to me right now. So.
Well, that's my goal of going to my guests, to make sure they're in the most comfortable environments where they can speak in a way that's I think, just, a way where we can connect the best. So that's a big reason why I love doing these things in person.
Yeah, I'm a big in-person person as far as podcasting goes. I don't really like to do virtual. I mean, it will if I have to, but the connection and energy you get in person is just so different. So I'm so glad you came out.
100%. And thanks for having me at your academy last night.
Yeah. Chris's school out here, Six Blades La Quinta. It's like, when I moved here last year, it was really cool to be able, because I've been with one team in one school my entire career since I was a little kid, and so it's always great. Like, it's really cool to have a place that I can come to and feel really comfortable at home and have such great, amazing people. So I'm glad you're able to come train with us.
Yeah, and you guys are working on some new Six Blade locations, right?
Yeah. So Chris and his brother, they have a company called the Flow Institute, and so they have Six Blades locations, but there's other projects in the works as well that are, not just that. And so they're growing pretty quickly. It's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it a franchise model? Is it like a 10th Planet model?
No, it's different. And it's one of those things I would definitely want Chris to be the one to speak about it, because I just don't know the details like inside and out super duper well, or it's not really my story to tell, I guess is probably a better way to say it. But yeah, it's a different model. It's definitely something that's different in the industry. It's not a franchise model, and I think it's really exciting. So I was telling you yesterday, like he could probably come on and talk about it, because I think it's cool to see what people are doing to innovate new different ideas inside the jiu-jitsu community and combat sports in general. Because it is such an unwritten path, like how to be successful in jiu-jitsu. And so I think one thing that's really important to them is bringing a lot of expertise from the business world and a lot of, people that have been mentors to them and have, these big, massive, successful companies, and bringing those principles to our industry and what we do, and really changing the industry in the way that they see fit. So yeah, really exciting. And I think it'd be cool for him to come on and talk about it sometime.
I love it. Yeah. Well, Kendall, a big reason why I was excited to have you on my show, aside from my involvement in jiu-jitsu, I've been involved for the past few years and have fallen in love with it. Living
it's
in
addicting.
Oh yeah, it is. But living in San Diego, I've been lucky to be surrounded by a lot of very high level people in the sport and have become good friends with them. And I've had a few of these guys on my show and some UFC guys too. But you're like the epitome of what I'm looking for with somebody who's has an athletic career, but has built so much more beyond that from a business standpoint. You know, and that you're the most, I would say you're the most well-known commentator within jiu-jitsu today.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
And that's how I think everybody who's in the sport of jiu-jitsu knows who you are primarily, but you also have your podcast, you teach, you coach, and you are working on this really cool new thing called the Accelerator program, right? JJA.
Yeah, Jiu Jitsu Accelerator. It's been an interesting journey with Jiu Jitsu Accelerator because it was born in March of 2021. So that's when it really came to life. But I run it. It first started in 90-day cycles and now it's in 6-month cycles. So I only run a few per year or a couple per year, depending on the year. But now, for the first time ever, we're getting ready to launch a different level of ecosystem within the project. So instead of just the one-on-one mentorship where it's a small group of people, there's a group aspect and the one-on-one aspect. And we, you know, one of the taglines is we take people from bronze to gold level performance in the areas of jiu-jitsu, mindset, strength and conditioning, and nutrition. And we do this in a very high touch way. There's a specific methodology that we follow, but there's a lot of personalized one-on-one attention from myself and the other coaches that I have on board. So we're taking it from just something that has only that signature program to offer to the rest of the ecosystem where there's going to be a sort of membership. We're going to do more in-person events. Those have already begun, but we're launching it in August at the Jiu-Jitsu Con. So Masters Worlds, we're going to have a booth for the first time.
Oh, wow.
We're going to do a lot of like live, I'm actually going to do live Get a Grip recordings. We're going to do meet and greets and like Q&As and interviews with like legends and go over these 4 pillars. So anyway, JJA is definitely exploding in a new way, which is really cool.
Yeah. So how does this compare to so do you offer different like one-on-one programs and also group programs that are related to putting people through something to improve?
Well, the thing with JJA and the reason why it was born primarily is because I felt that I, through blue, purple, and brown belt, was looking for a lot of answers that I couldn't get answers to. And I knew all of these high-level people in our sport, but it felt like I was going to have to hire like 5, 6, 7 different coaches to get the things that I needed and to get the coaching that I needed to be a professional athlete. And I hadn't won a black belt world title yet. And that was a really important goal of mine. And so what happened was, as I started climbing into the black belt ranks and started performing really well early on in black belt, I had a lot of people asking me how I was doing it, especially because I didn't come, I'm a Gracie Barra team member, but I wasn't at like a powerhouse school of famous athletes. I wasn't, quote unquote, like jujitsu famous, and that like I wasn't really that special as far as the attention I was getting. And certainly it didn't all come from me. So then it was like, well, how is she doing this? And so I got a lot of questions. So I started talking to people through the DMs. I had athletes in person, our students in person that would talk to me. And so really, I was like, I think that there's a way to bring the like fitness coaching, life coaching, business coaching thing, the industry, online knowledge space, really, that people have, and it's very established in other industries. I think we can bring it to jiu-jitsu, but it didn't exist at the time.
Right.
And so what we did is I developed a curriculum that brings people, first it was 90 days, now it's 6 months, through the process of accelerating their progress in the 4 pillars of athletic performance. So strength and conditioning, nutrition, mindset is huge. We start with that in the program because that affects everything. And then of course, jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So what this gave me the ability to do was not only chase after athletes' performance, but also jiu-jitsu practitioners who felt like they wanted to go further, faster. They felt like there was a way, especially like a lot of the people I work with are very high level in their other parts of their lives. They're very high level in their business. They're very happy with their relationship. They're, with their family members, like they're doing really well, but they're in jiu-jitsu and they're trying to figure out how to have the same success they've had outside on the mats, which is difficult to do because jiu-jitsu is kind of like a mystery to most people. It's like a weird thing to be involved in. So all that to be said, Jiu-Jitsu Accelerator is born, has evolved over time, but really what it has forced me to do as well is grow in my own capacity to like lead others through a personal development process, because Jiu-Jitsu Accelerator is, yes, we say, bronze to gold level performance, but it's really less about winning gold medals and it's more about personal development through the lens of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that definitely leads to more gold medals along the way. So it's been such a pleasure. I mean, it's an honor. We go really deep with these people. A lot of them become some of my best friends in the world after they graduate, and we keep working together, and they're big parts of my life, and it's a really big honor. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one thing that is very prevalent in your content is a lot of personal development stuff, which we don't see in jiu-jitsu, right? You're the only person I've come across who does it. And so that is certainly something that makes you stand out. What I'm getting at is I'm interested in how did you start developing this personal brand online and beyond, beyond being an athlete? Because you just mentioned, I didn't know this, like through blue, through brown, right? You were kind of just, people didn't know you as well. You were more
I was just chasing the dream. I was just a normal. Jiu-jitsu media was different back then, and for people listening that are in different sports and not in jiu-jitsu, like, we're not the NFL, you're not like an up and comer and making big bucks on brand deals. I was just a kid who wanted to be a world champion, who was giving it all I got. And along the way, my parents had opened their first jiu-jitsu school while I was in high school. And so and they were entrepreneurial before that. So I was watching entrepreneurial parents do their thing. Then I actually came back from college. I wrestled for Team USA. And I was traveling all over the world doing that. But I had developed and I've talked about this on social a lot, I developed a really severe eating disorder, and it was really tied to the weight class situation of things. I mean, I have an addictive brain regardless, but that was definitely a catalyst. And so I actually came back from college, came back from the Olympic Training Center, and came back to jiu-jitsu because it was a place that I could still express my desire for athletic performance without having to kill myself to do it. Yep. It was a huge heartbreak, but what it led to was, okay, if I'm going to be the best in the world at this, how am I going to get paid? How am I going to make money? So I was learning. And this is really where the personal brand part comes in and can apply to a lot of different things outside of just jiu-jitsu. Is in jiu-jitsu, you'll have these categories, but you can have this in other areas too. So like, I learned that it was really important for me to learn how to teach well. I learned that it was really important for me how to learn to sell memberships well. I learned that it was very important for me to actually give a shit about my clients, like really at a deep level, the people in the school, because they are your biggest allies, right? And they are who put food on your table. Like, they're so, so important. And it's easy to forget that once we start getting really big and we start, making more money and having more clients. It's very easy to forget that we're dealing with human beings. Because you get so busy dealing with other stuff. And one of the other things that I learned is it was really important for me to start developing a personal brand on social media and telling the truth. So I have always used social media as like a personal journal, personal diary. Not everybody likes to do that. It's not everybody's style. But I found that for me, that was something that stuck whether I was winning tournaments or not. So did winning tournaments and building my career through my performance grow my social media? 100% it did. But I didn't lose attention or followers or brand deals or sponsorships because I wasn't winning, because I could still connect with people, and I could still sell, and I could still teach, and I could still do all these other things that I learned how to do, that I felt were important in developing like my brand along the way.
Yeah. So when did you start using social media that way? Would you say you were kind of ahead of the game with the way you were using it, or was it kind of when people were more picking up on it?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm 27. I think when I got social media, or when I got Instagram as my biggest platform, and I think when I started using Instagram, man, I must have been like 15 or 16.
Okay.
And I didn't use it very much back then. It was just new in high school, and it wasn't like, a big thing. But really maybe I was 16 or 17. But when I started using it really heavily was when I came back from jiu-jitsu. I came back from wrestling, and I was doing jiu-jitsu, and I was recovering from my eating disorder experience. And I started talking about body image, and I started sharing about that, and sharing about jiu-jitsu, and sharing about training, and just talking about what was going on like in my life and the struggles that I was having, and also bringing a lot of encouragement to other people, because I was on an upward trajectory with this recovery journey. And so I was bringing hope to people. And really what I didn't realize I was doing then, although maybe I did a little bit, because I think I've always known this is a part of my purpose, is I've always found it pretty natural to connect and try to bring out the best in other people through sharing my own like hero's journey, for lack of a better way to say that. And so to talk about the negative, but not in a way where you're just being like vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable. Right. It's like, cause that could be a trap too. Like right. It's no shade to anyone who does that because we're taught like, oh, you need to be vulnerable. Yeah. And it's like, well, that is not maybe like sometimes self-harm. Like it's not actually bringing value to yourself or the other people. So part of my like coaching and part of what I did with myself is like, I started really sharing with other people what I needed to hear. And I would literally write in my captions, like, this is a note to myself also. And people connected to that. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, that's how people like started to know me in the jiu-jitsu world, was like through that authentic sharing. And that bled into other things. I would share, I wouldn't use necessarily names and dates and stuff, but I'd share about heartbreak. I would talk about the devastation of losing and how horrible that was. Mm-hmm. You know, and just personal development in general. So yeah, I think just sharing authentically and trying to bring value. Like you hear that so often these days, but there's a lot of ways to bring value. You can bring value by being funny. You can bring value, no one likes this, by being attractive and people wanting to look at you. You can bring value. Like there's so many different ways. And that was, you know, my way. And I think continues to be sustainable so that my career doesn't depend on gold medals.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge. And another interesting aspect of this is jiu-jitsu, combat sports have traditionally been looked at as more male dominated, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a big piece, I think, where I think you've had a huge impact is inspiring women who do jiu-jitsu. And one of our great mutual friends, Emily Hayden, I listened to your podcast on her show, and she had mentioned, I only know guys who I look up to in jiu-jitsu. I want a girl role model. Yeah. And she said, I pick you.
Yeah. So, which is so funny because I had followed Emily back in the day, because Emily Hayden, if you don't know her, look her up. She's amazing. Good friend of mine. I followed her back in the day with her bodybuilding journey. And because I loved, her slogan, Evolve with Emily. Right. And so then when she followed me like years later, because I never talked to her or knew her or anything, I was like, what? And then I realized it was because she was doing jiu-jitsu. I was like, this is so cute. I love this. So yeah, very big connection there.
Yeah. And your journey of, I guess, vlogging, sharing your journey online sounds a lot like hers when she was doing the YouTube stuff early on with her bodybuilding career.
Yeah. And I never got, to be fair, like that's an area of insecurity for me. I always feel like I'm not like well-versed enough in tech. I haven't vlogged enough. I haven't done enough long form content. But the truth is, like, I usually just try to let that go when that feeling comes up, because I've done what I can. I've shared what I can. And there'll be time for more content later. And I've had some YouTube stuff out there, but I think the message remains the same, is like, do people come to your page and feel like they can be more of themselves, or do they feel like not enough? Do they feel turned off? Do they feel judged? And that's, it's a big part of personal brand, in my opinion. And I think it's what it's allowed me, talking about personal brand, like one of the things I'm known for, I believe, in the jiu-jitsu community, and this has bled into so much of why I believe, I'd have to go ask around particularly. I believe I'm probably the highest paid female athlete of today, at least, that's still competitive, because I don't rely on my fights and seminars only for money. So I have a lot of different revenue streams. We've got 4 schools. My family and I have 4 academies. I have JJA. which is a great revenue stream. I have commentary. I have the podcast is not monetized. It's mostly I just do it for fun. But someday it's just not that big yet. But I barely put out any content. But I love doing it. But anyway, interviewing different kinds of media, brand deals, and then of course seminars, fights, camps. But like one of the things, just as a small tidbit, is like I started as a facilitator with doing camps and seminars, but now I run my own, which means I don't have costs outside of the costs that I want. And that is a huge, huge thing that like most people who teach seminars and teach camps, it's not their fault. It's not a judgment call. They have not been educated or learned or done enough trial and error to learn how to run something for themselves. And so it's so scary that they just get hired to do it for other people, or they don't have the audience to bring in the poll. Which, by the way, like most people, you don't just start that way. Like when I first started running events, it was like made up of my friends and our students and people that I would just have come for free, or I'd pay for their flights to bring them in. Like, you've gotta know that is how things begin. Yeah. Like there may be, again, we're not the NFL. If there may be exceptions in other industries where there's so many eyeballs that you snap and anybody will come, that was never the case for me. So it was really building it brick by brick. And my parents instilled a lot in me too. Like, do it messily, do it messy. Like, if you want the optics to look like you had 30 people at your event, get 30 people there no matter what it takes. And then not only the optics, but you give them a great experience. You get testimonials in it, in exchange. You also get the practice.
Yeah.
Like, who told you that you deserved to have 30 people show up and learn from you? If you don't have people buying tickets, then develop the skills so that you can share why you deserve to sell tickets, right? So there's a lot of ways to do it.
So I'm curious the kind of people you attract, both in the sense of people who want to follow you in your journey online, but also people who come to your retreats and your programs. How would you describe these people? Would you say, I would assume mostly women because you're such a prevalent female in the sport, right? But from the side of the more vulnerable side that you've shared with your experiences, is there a certain type of person, and is there a way you could describe that person that you find coming to your programs? That's
a great question. And you know what's funny about the masculine and the feminine, like, existence in my small corner of the internet and the people that I work with, right? Because I do attract a ton of women because there are not as many representatives of us in the jiu-jitsu community. But you know what? I also attract a lot of men who they love their like big, intense, like crazy, super focused, dialed in, like structured male leaders that they've got around them. But maybe don't have a strong like feminine presence in their life. And for some reason, the way that I speak about vulnerability connects with them and they show up. It doesn't mean that they're going to like come in and like, be super sappy or over the top, but they see like something, we're mirrors for each other, right? So they feel something of like, I want to be around that. And they may not even know why. Like, I want to be around that. I want that person to ask me some questions versus what I'm used to. It's a little different. Like, they're searching, most people, to answer your question, that I work with, specifically in JJA, is the easiest to pull from because seminars and camps and stuff get a little bit more spread out. Although there's a lot of alignment, are typically people who are very ambitious. They're often very hard on themselves and harsh critics of themselves. They're often people who are always trying to be the best in any room they walk into at anything they do. They want results in anything they do. They're willing to invest in whatever exposure they need to get it. But there's not a path laid out to follow, so they're not really sure how to make that happen. And so they connect, with me for that reason. And that's like one archetype of the people that I work with, both men and women. And I would think the other archetype of people, especially people who come to seminars or people who participate in Q&As or things like this, that's maybe not as intense of a connection, but still very, very relevant, is people who see something in me that they are connected to along with the jiu-jitsu thing, right? So they're like, we have this in common and I also connect to you in this area and I don't find that with anybody else. So I'm attracted to that and I want to like hear the content. I want to be around. I want to see if I can ask you a question because truthfully, any personal brand is built around people wanting to have access to you and or be more like you in some way. It doesn't mean be you or become you or you're better than, but there's something in you that you've worked to develop or that you have naturally or whatever it is that they're attracted to for some reason. So I think it's really as simple as that, which is why his personal brand can exist as so many things. You don't need it to look like someone else's. And it's so funny. This is very Gary Vee-ish of me. And you listened to him so much, especially during COVID when it was like he was really popping off during that time. And I was building my personal brand and I started JJ in 2021. Around that time, like, be authentically who you are and really put that out there and he would always say like, someone will connect with that. Someone will connect with that and it's sustainable. Because it's actually how you feel and it's actually how you are. If you're running around trying to be somebody else, you may attract people that like that. But one, most people can smell bullshit and like the energy just is not there. It's an energetic thing and they feel that it's kind of fake. But two, it's really hard to keep that up and it's really easy to burn out. And it's also acting in insecurity and a mindset of lack because you don't believe that being your true self can actually attract the audience that is out there, that exists out there that you just don't know about yet.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've brought up your parents a few times, and I just want to get a little more context about who you are and where you come from.
Yeah.
And I guess a good way to start there first, when did you get into, how and why did you get into wrestling and jiu-jitsu? How old were you for each of those?
So my parents grew up in Atlanta, or different parts, but they came from Atlanta, and my dad was a black belt in Kyokushin Karate, and he went to one of the Gracie Challenges, which, if you know anything about that, the Gracie family, when they brought jiu-jitsu to the United States, they would put on these Gracie Challenges, and they'd put these ads out, and they'd say, anybody come to this gym at this time and see if you can beat us up, basically. So you got all these like 5'7", 160-pound Brazilian dudes choking everybody out, these giant bodybuilders. So anyway, my dad lived with these Japanese super tough guys, right? Like these fighters. And they went, and everyone got their butt kicked, as is what happens with jiu-jitsu. And my dad was like, I have to learn this. So my parents literally moved to California. My dad started training with one of Hickson's guys back then, and then my parents were living in my dad was working and doing some TV stuff. They moved to Temecula to have kids, and they found a Gracie Barra school. And my dad came home one day when I was about 4 years old and said, hey, Holly, I found something that is going to change the trajectory of our family's lives forever. And my mom was like, I thought we were done with jiu-jitsu. Like, what's going on? So that's the long version of that's how I got into it. I loved it. I had fun. I enjoyed it. I was like play for me. Jiu-jitsu is so magical in that way. You get to play and learn self-defense and have fun and work out and exercise your mind and your body like you're playing chess all at the same time.
You were doing jiu-jitsu as a kid.
Yes, very young.
Very young.
I started judo when I was 7 because there wasn't that much jiu-jitsu competition going on at the time, and I wanted to compete more. I was always very fiery. And then when I was 13, I switched to wrestling because I went into high school, and I realized that I didn't want to do PE, and I thought that I could maybe learn some stuff that would help with my jiu-jitsu because I was already competing at a high level at that age. Went to wrestling, fell in love, as one does, chasing the Olympic dream, and then found my way back to jiu-jitsu when I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was after high school, and did you have an opportunity to go wrestle in college?
I did for a year.
Okay.
So I was training a lot at the Olympic Training Center, and I ended up going to Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, Canada. They wrestle with the NCAA, so it's the only international school that does that, and it's a national training center for Canada. So we made the decision, my family and I, to go there for a year. But I came back and switched back to jiu-jitsu the summer after because of, like I said, the eating disorder and the health issues that were going on. I just could not sustain continuing to do the 30-pound weight cuts that I had to do to make the weight class for international competition, which is all I cared about.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a brutal time.
Yeah. And then when you got into after wrestling for a year, you got back in jiu-jitsu, did you have your sights set on really competing at a very high level? Or were you just say, hey, I love this and I just want to get back to doing this?
I think kind of like I describe my clients, and this is, I think, an important part for anyone who does any sort of coaching, is I was that person. No matter what I was in, I wanted to be the best. I just wanted to win. I've got that deep inside me. Like, it's a blessing and a curse, but I wanted to be the best. I wanted to win. I wanted to be the best in the world. So it was like when I came back to jiu-jitsu, I had the opportunity to be on the mats, moving, taking care of my body, fighting. I love to fight. I'm a fighter at heart, and chase a new dream, because giving up the dream that I had with the Olympics was so absolutely devastating that I needed somewhere to put that, you know? And like, it's kind of like when people jump from one relationship to another. It's like you need to be able to, and I'm not recommending that, but I'm just saying in this case, it was the healthiest thing for me to do because, like I said, addictive brain, addictive mindset, like there's no telling like where I would have spiraled into, right? And so I think jiu-jitsu, like when people say like, oh, jiu-jitsu saved my life, you know, it's not for me, like it's not tennis, it's not business. Like there's other ways to like jiu-jitsu. There's something that's so special that happens chemically with the body when you are doing it with another person.
Right.
And it really is transformative. It's therapeutic. Doesn't replace therapy, but it's therapeutic. And so, yeah, I mean, as soon as I was on the mats again, I had already been a high-level competitor as a kid. And I just knew, like, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to spend any time doing this, why would I not be the best in the world?
Right.
So, and then at the same time, like, I was watching my parents be entrepreneurs. I was starting to learn about business. My mom wanted me to go back to school I was like, definitely not. And so the only thing that because I wanted to be a sports psychologist. And so I was like, well, if I still want to be a sports psychologist later, I'll go back to school. But for right now, I'm going to work at Starbucks for a year and just to make my parents like happy because I'm doing something. And I'll start learning about the school. And so that's really where like business development started happening. And it all tied together because I was competing. And how do you support yourself as a broke jiu-jitsu competitor? So I had to start learning how to teach, and I had to start learning how to teach privates. But then I started learning how to sell memberships, and learning how to sell was like the best game ever because it's so addicting once you start selling and you start racking up sales. So I was like really learning like, oh man, I can get people to give me thousands of dollars. Like I'm like, this is so cool. Like, especially when you're 18, that's so much money that you're just like, I remember the first time I sold like a year-long prepaid membership and I was like, oh my God, like I wish I could just have all this money for myself. I've never seen this much money swiped on a credit card ever before. And so, learning to sell. And then the thing that really changed was when I started to be able to learn how to take the skills that I had in the school and working with clients there to outside of that. Because I was thinking about this, I was going to mention this earlier. Like one thing I talk about a lot with athletes who ask me now, like, well, how do you do it? How do you make your personal brand? It's like, or how do you make money? I'm like, man, you have to build skills and then get people to pay you for them. So a lot of times you're going to hear a lot of no's because why wouldn't you? People don't know who you are. They don't have any proof of concept that you're good at what you do. You know how many times I asked people if I could teach seminars at their school for free? And they told me no. Many times because they're like, who is this purple belt girl? Like, we even know her. And I was pretty nice and good at talking to people. But even then it was like, so there's a lot of like, same with commentary. I asked so many times for so long and was told no. And, so I think a lot of it just has to do with putting yourself out there and being really persistent.
Yeah, and what we're going to get to commentary in a second, but I want to go back to the influence of your parents being entrepreneurs. Because clearly that made you a certain way. Everything you just described are all the traits that I see with all the guests on this show. People who are, they're not waiting around. They're really pushing and they're getting rejected over and over again. And then something clicks, right? And that's what you just described and everything you just said. What did your parents do?
So my dad was a recruiter for telecom companies. And so he would place like people at high profile jobs at like T-Mobile and Sprint and stuff like that, right? Back in the day. So, but he didn't work with a company, he worked for himself. And so you can imagine like, man, you're getting like these massive, I don't even know, 30K checks. And then you realize like, that takes a lot of discipline. Okay, well now I don't have to work for a while. And then you go, so there's a lot of like time management. My mom started learning how to do it, did it with him as well. My mom was going to school at the time when we were growing up. She has a PhD in Jungian psychology and wrote her dissertation on the effects of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the human psyche. Oh, wow. So there's a lot there. Yes, very specific. It was like we were really one of the first papers that was written about Jiu-Jitsu in that way. And now it's referenced a lot, but she was like the first one to do it. And because I was back in the, I guess mid 2000s, I want to say. Yeah, so it was a while ago. So then literally, and this is where I learned a lot of like discipline and just go-getter-ism. In 2007, my parents opened their first jiu-jitsu school. My dad was a brown belt. They were like, let's make the leap. We've got our own, like he was going to keep recruiting. In the meantime, they bought this new house. They moved because back then you had to move really far away if you were going to open a school and not make everyone mad, right? That was very like how it was. And so moved and bought this house and invested in this school and grew it small and then leased this massive place that we're still in right on the freeway that was like way out of budget, but it was like, this is the next move to make. And then the market crashed. Then 2008 happened. And it was like this massive, I remember my parents did such a good job at shielding my sister and I from the brunt of the financial fear. But for entrepreneurs who, not just entrepreneurs who just threw everything they had into new home, new business, new space that we can't afford. My dad had actually just gotten hired for the very first time to try to supplement this transition at a place where he could keep doing recruiting. And so, of course, was the first one to let go, had just been on with them for a couple months, but that was why they felt comfortable to rent the bigger space. So I provide all this context to say that when that happened, I had to really watch entrepreneurs in action. That was the first time where it was like, oh my God, we're going to go underwater. So my parents literally, there was this one period of time.
And you were a kid.
Yeah. I mean, I was, my goodness, like 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a period of time at that point, and my parents will tell this story now, where it was literally like, I don't know, their last, like, there was not much in the checking account, right? Everything was tied up, and you're waiting for membership bills to come in from jiu-jitsu students, but everyone's getting let go. Everyone's getting fired. Everyone's losing their homes. So every day people are canceling, their credit cards are declining. So you don't really know how much money is going to come in because people's cards are not even going through. And so they're just letting everyone train for free. They're just doing, I mean, that was brutal. And so at the time there was very little money in the checking account. I don't know if it was like, you know, my mom had said something like, oh yeah, like our last $1,000 or like something like that. Right. And they had this genius idea. We never taught MMA, keep in mind. There was some Muay Thai classes at one point, but they had this genius idea to spend their last money on a cage to put in the school where you could see it from the windows on the freeway as you were driving by.
Oh, wow.
Yes, a cage and a banner on the wall or on the outside of the building that said like Jiu-Jitsu, MMA. I forget what it says now. It might have said like not Jiu-Jitsu because Jiu-Jitsu wasn't popular back then. So that didn't pull people in. Yeah. It was like mixed martial arts, I think is what the banner was. I'd have to ask. And then put that giant thing in there. And my dad was like, man, if people like, he had his Kyokushin, black bare knuckle, like super intense fighting. He's like, and had trained some MMA. He's like, people come in and want to do MMA. I'll do that. I don't care. We just need people to walk in the door because my parents were both like, great salespeople and also genuinely really care about the people who walk in. And so for them, they were like, if we could just get people in here, then the right people who do have financial stability, even throughout this crisis, will find us and we'll be okay. They spent their last money on the cage and the banner and they survived. They made it. Like they were one of the businesses at that time that made it and survived, supporting family and kids and new home and all the things. And so, I mean, imagine you're learning. I learned a lot through that period. Yeah.
That's incredible. So I would guess that you got a lot of your selling skills by watching your parents in action, especially during such a critical time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that we're born with specific gifts and then we get to decide if we cultivate them or not. And also nature versus nurture is an interesting argument because both my parents are very charismatic and both of them are great salespeople. So growing up in that environment, another word to use for that is like manipulative. Like I can be manipulative for bad or for good, right? Sales in a lot of ways is coaching, but it's also like, I hate to use the word manipulation because it has as negative connotation to it. But if I were to look up the definition, and I haven't, so this is, you know, to be fair, I haven't looked it up, but manipulation, like an armbar is a manipulation. You're moving a joint in a way you want it to go, right? So if you are learning how to manipulate a conversation in a way you want it to go, you can use that for good or for bad. If there is a person and you're selling a jiu-jitsu membership, and you genuinely are not there to make them pay. You're genuinely there to find out if this is a good fit for them, because not every school is the right fit for every person. Not every martial art is the right fit for every person, right? So if you're, and JJA is a great example too. If I'm genuinely on the phone or in person with someone trying to find out, is this a good solution to your problems? Do I really believe that our school can help with your goals? Then there is some manipulation in steering that conversation in the direction I want it to go based on the questions, based on charisma, based on making people feel comfortable, based on giving people the space to open up and tell you what's going on with them, right? I'm not saying it can't be used for evil, but I'm saying I watched a lot of that be used for good and I picked up on it along the way and it's helped me with a lot of skills.
For sure. I like those metaphors a lot, the armbar one especially.
Right.
So how did you get your opportunity at first to start commentating? And how did that grow?
Yeah, so commentary, so it's a combination of things. One, I started to build some attention for myself in the competitive world. And so that affords you certain opportunities and doors to be open because as a high level competitor, I knew the media guys very well. I was around the flow guys all the time. The IBJJF guys know me since I was a kid, you know, so I knew a lot of people. So that was helpful. But a lot of the time also just taking a step backward, it's like, I didn't just know them, like I treated them well. And it's a lot of it's just being good with people. Like I asked them questions about their lives. I'm easy to work with on the other side of media. I show up, and do what I'm asked to do, and I go above and beyond, and I do extra social media, and I really like try to do more than I'm asked to do. And so I have a good relationship with the people that I am eventually going to ask a favor from, right? And so that's a big part of it. The other part of it is, as someone who has like a lot of titles, it was easy to be like, well, I know how to talk about jiu-jitsu, even though I didn't have proof. They could kind of bet on me for that, right? So then in actuality, it was really just me asking, and I always credit Howell for this, Howell Teague. He is one of the most well-known commentators in jiu-jitsu, and I always credit him for this because I asked him so many times if I could commentate. I think that I just wanted to do it. Like I like being, when I was a kid.
Guys, that's so important.
Well, and when I was a kid, I wanted to be Hannah Montana. So it was like, I was like, I just want to be in front of a camera. I just want to have a microphone. And like, I love to perform. That's me. I love being on stage. I love performing. So jiu-jitsu is a form of performance for me. Commentary is performance. And there's a lot of ways to express that in different outlets. Coaching is a way to do that. Teaching seminars, podcasting, all of it is and showing up on social media. And I think that performing in essence it can be like anything has, a light and a shadow. It can lead you to really dark places, but it can also be a great tool for personal development and self-development if you're able to, look at the parts of yourself maybe you shy away from showing, or watch how you show up in the world and when you're under pressure, or when certain people are watching versus others. So anyway, another topic for another time. But commentary, I asked Howell a lot. And what happened was, one time, finally, it was the right place at the right time, because I kept getting told no. I reached out to other organizations as well. And I hadn't started my podcast yet, so I couldn't even like really send people clips of me talking like in long format. But I was, doing it on my own social and posting videos, and I could have my face to the camera on stories, and people could tell I was very comfortable with that. So it was the No-Gi Pan Ams, I think, or maybe it was one of those weird times during COVID because the tournament schedule had gone switched around, but I was supposed to compete, and then I was injured. But I decided to go anyway because I had already booked my flights and my hotel, and I was broke at the time. I mean, this was like, 2021, I think. And I didn't have much money. So I was like, well, I'm not going to get a refund on the flight, and I guess I can coach my friends. And I was literally thought maybe I can teach something or find a private or do a seminar or like make some money somehow to be there. If I can't compete, I'll make it work. And that's another entrepreneurial thing.
Exactly. Just putting yourself in the right environment, not knowing exactly what to expect, but you could make something happen.
Even if my original plan isn't going to work out, I will make it happen another way.
Right.
I am scrappy that way. And you have to be, especially in an industry that's really doesn't have a whole, a rule book laid out for you. And that's kind of a cop out too with jiu-jitsu people, in my opinion, because most industries don't. And even if they do have a rule book, that might not be the best rule book for you. And you may need to make your own path, right? So I think it's really just human, like the human trajectory. What trajectory do you want to be on? What do you want your career to look like? So I was there. I was like, I'm just going to go. And Howell reached out to me, and he was like, hey, I know you've been asking about this for a while. We need somebody. I don't know if someone was sick or something like that happened. He's like, we can't pay you, but if you're already going to be here, then we'll give you a shot. And dude, so then when you're given your shot, what do? You show up super prepared. You do a great job. You perform at 1,000%. You give them every reason to believe that you should be asked back. And then you follow up and ask for feedback. That's what I did. I followed up, and I was like, thank you. So, and in between, as we had breaks, I would ask for feedback. I would say like, what do you think? Is this okay? And I had that mix of confidence and humility, because you don't want to just, be like kind of a baby about it, but, or like not have the confidence that you know what you're doing, but it's a mix. And, the rest was kind of history from there. Yeah.
Amazing. And you talked about getting prepared. That's actually a big question I have for you. I'm going to ask it at the end because I want to cover some of your jiu-jitsu career and then put all that together. But one thing I wanted to ask is, was there a most memorable super fight that you've commentated for in your commentating career?
Commentary, memorable super fight. My most memorable probably commentary experience, it wasn't a super fight, but it was the first time that I was able, I think it was the World. I just can't remember what year, because again, the dates had gotten mixed around. I think it was like the Worlds, it was at a different time of year than it normally was. So it was maybe early 2022 or something like that. But I was commentating, And it was the first time I got to do the Worlds. And it's not that I felt like there was a lot of pressure because I knew I was good at it. Like with commentary, I've always felt very confident in my abilities and I'm open to feedback, but I've always felt like very, like this is something that comes naturally to me and comes easily to me. And I was commentating actually with Howell at the time, and I commentated with a lot of different people like throughout then because you get switched around with different partners. But I was commentating with him, and there was a break in things, and he turns to me and he goes, "Hey, Bushesha just wrote us and just texted me, and it was like, dude, Kendall's really great at commentary, and you need to have her back. Like she's
cool.
excellent. Like and a bunch of other really complimentary things. Bushesha and I had known each other in passing. We met before, but it's not like we were friends. Like he didn't owe me any favors. He wasn't like, just trying to be a good guy because we didn't really know each other at the time. Yeah. And at the time I was an up and coming athlete and I had won some like no-gi world titles and things, but he was like already a legend. And the thing that made a huge difference there was the flow grappling, like, and everybody that, IBJJF, like anybody in that arena had this huge stamp of confirmation from like one of the greatest to ever do it of like, dang, this girl's super good. You definitely have to have her back. Yeah. And that felt really, really good. But it also was like to be complimented by someone so highly respected who, especially athletes, like we really care like about the commentary when we're watching our matches back. Like there's a lot of things that like are unfortunate that get said about. And so anyway, it was just that was probably the most memorable thing that that was probably the most memorable experience I had commentating because it was kind of a turning point where I was like, wow. And the other one was Eddie Bravo came up to me one time, and I've known him on and off since I was a kid, but he came up to me one time and he was like, "Oh my God, he's so great. I love him. Oh my God, you are the best. You are one of the best." And I don't just say that. I don't just put that. You are the best. I want to have you on my shows. They need to keep having you all the time. And so both of those times I was like, wow, I guess I'm not just like kind of good at this. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at this. Like, this is so nice. So those are probably the most memorable.
Oh yeah. And both of those, by the way, for the audience, Bushesha, one of the most famous UFC fighters out there. Both of these guys, Eddie Bravo also was on Kendall's podcast.
Yeah, so he was a while back.
Yeah, you guys can check those out.
He's also been on Joe Rogan a lot of their buddies. And for those who aren't familiar with jiu-jitsu, he's one of the biggest names in jiu-jitsu.
For sure.
It's a big compliment.
10th Planet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so to your jiu-jitsu career, one thing, so I first watched you compete live at ADCC 2024.
Oh, cool.
I was there. That was an amazing experience for me personally. That was like a turning point for me in my jiu-jitsu journey.
Yeah.
I checked into the MGM Grand. Within 20 minutes of being there, I go to the pool, meet Gordon.
Everyone's in the, I was going to say, and all the athletes are just out in the pool.
Oh, yeah. It was hilarious. It was like right before the brackets were announced that evening. But had a chat with him, and I'm a huge fan of his and a bunch of other guys. I had some friends competing. And so at the end of ADCC, I was able to come down to the floor and hang out with some of the friends I had down there, some of the Yatos guys, some San Diego people. And I met you. That was the first time I met you.
Yeah.
It was very brief. You had medals all over your neck, a lot going on. But it was just such a really, and then right before that, I got to meet John Jones. Right? Which you did as well.
Yeah.
And it was just such an incredible experience for me personally, and it made me that much more excited about jiu-jitsu. And I did my first competition a few weeks later and won everything.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was incredible. But your career, you're 8-time world champion, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at all belts. So not all black belt, but yes.
But what would you say is your next big goal, next big focus in terms of competition and really taking things, you're at the highest level, but taking things to the next level for you personally in jiu-jitsu competition?
Man, yeah, that's the hot question right now lately for me because this is the first time in my career I've competed as infrequently as I am. And it's probably because it's, the first time this goes a lot together with business. Like it's the first time in my life that I've had so much else going on in business that jiu-jitsu competition or sport competition in general, because it was wrestling at different times, is not the primary focus of my life. And that is a privilege, right? I don't want that to be confusing. Like that's not a bad thing. That was the goal. I was trying to build a career that didn't revolve around me having to win gold medals to get checks. Like that is where most jiu-jitsu people are at. And those checks are not usually that big. And they're few and far between. And if you get injured, you can't fight. And. So it's a very tough position to be in for most people, even the top 1%, but especially below that. So for me now, like I have the privilege of just getting to do stuff that's fun. Like I can compete if I want to compete. And it's a big thing. Like I've been talking to some of the people closest in my life lately about this of like getting to ask myself that question, like, what is fun? What do I even want to do? What do I want to do? And it was never that way before. What I want to do is what I have to do. So what do I want to do? And so I think, definitely ADCC next year is on the agenda. ADCC 2022, I had that massive injury in the semis. I felt so good that tournament. That was devastating. Needed to happen like all things do looking back. It was a great turning point for me, but it was really hard. And then took third last year. And that was also really tough for different reasons.
Sure.
And then, so this next year, like I definitely plan on doing that. But in between now and then, it really is a question because for those who don't know, that's about a year from now exactly. Okay. So I did compete in USA grappling team trials last month. And so I'll be fighting in Serbia in October to do that event, the Grappling World Championships, which not all jiu-jitsu people compete in the States and Brazil, but it's bigger for other countries. And so it's kind of that's the group of people that's trying to get into the Olympics. So it's kind of a different groove of like organizations of who fights where kind of a thing. So I'm doing that. But other than that, I think we're starting to negotiate some super fights. I've been talking to some different organizations, but I think I've afforded myself the position to take fights that are genuinely interesting for me now. And also I have enough confidence and security and like groundedness in myself, which hasn't been a straight line. I've faltered over the years or, needed help from people in my life to remind me of this when I falter, but have the opportunity to be grounded enough to not say yes to everything for the need to win more medals, to feel better about myself, to boost my ego, to feel relevant, to get the likes, to get the clicks, because I no longer have the excuse, I have to for my career. I have to win. I have to, because I've done most of the things that I want to do.
Right.
So I think that is something that so many athletes, and not just athletes, but other people in different arenas struggle with, is once you get to a level of some pretty decent comfort, are you doing things because it's really the right thing for you or because your ego is running the show?
Right.
And for me, there were multiple times I almost said yes to things because my ego was in the driver's seat when it actually didn't really make sense for me to sign up for this tournament, to do this super fight, or, to fight this person or whatever. Sure. So yeah, we've got some things in the works, but nothing confirmed yet other than, ADCC next year.
Yeah. Are you going to CJI to watch?
So it's cool because Jiu Jitsu JJ Con is at Masters World, and they have JJ Con, which is an adult tournament. They have Masters Worlds, and they have the kids tournament all in the same weekend. And that's always huge. And I'll have the Jiu Jitsu Accelerator booth for the first time. So if you're in Vegas, come see me. It's going to be so fun. And we'll be doing a lot of interactive stuff there. And that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then CJI is Saturday and Sunday. So I did actually, some people reached out to me to see if I'd come down in the pit and, be there and do some content and do some fun things. So I may be, but it's not confirmed yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh, we're getting close on time for you.
There's so much things we could go into.
I know. One thing I wanted to ask about was the injuries you overcame, but your first episode ever, I listened to that, and you talk about that experience in 22 at ADCC where you hurt your knee very badly and you had to go to the hospital. And I mean, is there a way you can quickly describe how you overcame that? Mentally more than anything? Yeah,
I think the most succinct way to describe that period of time was, it was the kind of thing that really burnt down the ground that I stood on, so to speak. So much of my value was based on how I could perform as an athlete. And I knew that somewhat consciously, but not in my body, not in my bones, like not in my soul, in a really honest way, like how much insecurity there was underneath being, if I wasn't able to perform a certain level, if I wasn't able to achieve certain things competitively, if I wasn't able to look a certain way aesthetically, if I wasn't able to show off this level of success and prowess that I've prided myself in my entire life in getting my self-esteem through achievement. So if I wasn't able to do that, then I did not know how much insecurity lived underneath that. I understood the concept, but I didn't really get it because I never had to look at it in my life.
Mhm.
I never had to really look at it. So I believe really that was like a universal divine thing where it was like, you need to learn this lesson because otherwise it's going to come up in a different way. Like have you ever heard the cycle repeats until the lesson is learned, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, we're going to do this now. We're going to knock you down so bad that you're going to learn this lesson because we've tried in little ways. I'm, speaking as the universe or God, whatever
Mhm.
feels right for you, but we've tried in little ways. We've given you nudges and now we're going to knock you the fuck down.
Yeah.
And I've learned it in business too. I've learned it in other things. Failure is such an important teacher. It's such an important teacher. If you're willing, and for myself, if I was willing to slow down enough to see what was underneath,
Mhm.
because I had people that encouraged me, look, you don't need to launch a new project the day after your injury so you can feel better about yourself. Like that's literally what I wanted to do. I'm like,
Mhm.
well, I'll just start a new business.
Yeah.
Or I'll do this. I'll be successful. I'll make more money. I'll have an achievement. If I can't do it with my body, I'll do it this other way. And it's not to say there's something wrong with coping through work, but at that moment in time, I really needed to experience a deep level of humility
Mm.
about how much I relied on that for my self-esteem.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well said. And that's just a huge theme for my show is this transition piece or not relying on one identity as an athlete, but expanding beyond that. I've struggled with that in the past when I was a competitive athlete back in my days, I played
Yeah.
water polo
Oh,
in
wow.
college and then just different jobs I've had. So that's something that comes up a lot. And it's
Yeah.
cool that you have that experience to teach you that despite how horrific it was.
Yeah.
But one last final question I have. I usually ask at the end, what's an entrepreneurial life hack that you could share with the audience that goes against the mainstream belief? But I'm just going to adjust that a little bit and ask tactically, how do you prepare to present yourself and go show up at your best, perform with all
Yeah.
the many different things you do?
It's a great question and it's an ever evolving thing because preparing yourself when you are one thing or one version of yourself might look different than the next. So what it is for me right now is I have a really strong practice with my faith.
Mm.
And that a lot of times has to do with a lot of surrender and a lot of service. So there are a couple different prayers that really speak to me. And it's not really in a religious context, but it's more of like, I believe that there is something out there that is bigger and greater than I and more powerful than I. And I choose to use the word God for that because it makes sense to me. I didn't used to like that word. I really struggled with it when I was younger,
Mm.
or not really young, but anyway, growing up. And so a couple of the prayers are like, God, please help me just be of service today. Like just show me and help me be tuned in enough to hear that intuitive thought as it comes through to be of service so that I'm not so busy in my head that I can't hear what's going on in my heart. Cause like for me, that's where I feel like that energy lives and I'm co-creating it with it all the time. It's not something that tells me what to do
Mhm.
necessarily, or it's like punishing me, but it's something that like I can tap into. Like the phone line's always active if I pick up the phone. So how am I spending time picking up the phone and tapping into that? For me, like meditation and writing and reading, especially certain like spiritual different, I rotate through a lot. There's like Pema Chodron is someone I read often. Return to Love is another book that I really like. There's certain things in my rotation consistently that bring me back to that place and remind me of that. So I'm tapping into that on a consistent basis. And that really helps me show up as my best self. And that's definitely one of the things, like the tactical things before I go into meetings, before I talk to my staff and I do one-on-ones with people, before I go into problem solve and call angry clients, before not necessarily JJA, thank goodness, but
Sure.
when you have thousands of people in your schools, there's going to be
Oh, yeah.
stuff. And the other thing is like if I'm going to do post-match interviews, if I'm commentating, if I'm interviewing a guest on a podcast or being on a podcast, like I did it before today,
Yep.
or anything with in-person stuff or running events or seminars. Okay. So anything at all. It's like, or with my family, or if I'm having a conversation with my partner or whatever. It's like, I really try to like close my eyes. I'll go to the bathroom, and like just get some peace and quiet, close my eyes for a second, say, God, I totally surrender the outcome to this. I don't know how it's going to go. I would love to be of service. Please show me where to go, show me what to say, show me how to do it, and just help me walk in that energy with where I'm going right now. And honestly, when I show up genuinely and authentically trying to give my best self to whoever and whatever the circumstances, it's really hard to go wrong. It's really hard to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's like it's a pretty beautiful, I could call that a hack. It really is. So the answer is making time for that. How do I make time for that? Yeah.
I love it. Kendall, thank you so much for sharing everything. I've really enjoyed watching your journey. I can't wait to watch you continue to succeed and move forward, and everything you're doing. It's really exciting. So thank you so much for having me, spending the time, and sharing all of this on my show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming all the way out and doing the interview. You had such great questions, and I really appreciate it a lot. I'm a professional interviewer here, so I always love the good questions. And I really appreciate the conversation. I think what you're doing with your podcast is so cool, and I'm excited to watch how it evolves and grows. And I'll go back and listen to some of the other episodes. You've had some people on that I really love. So it'll be great. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you, Kendall. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Built for Legacy with Chris Nichols. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube and follow on Apple and Spotify. And on Instagram, follow @Nichols&Dimes and @Built4Legacy Podcast. And please like or comment on any of the videos you come across. Would love to hear your feedback so I can continue to innovate and grow the podcast. Thank you for the support, and we'll see you next time.